Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. This is my Hardscape line 90 that I escaped a few months ago. There are videos of the hardscaping process, etc. Recently I've added some fish, some beautiful green tiger barbs, and it's gone through a bit of a journey, literally and metaphorically. So maybe a month ago I was asked to bring this down to a film shoot. In fact, I volunteered to take this down to a film shoot for a Warze for some marketing material. And so I took it down in a van, drained all the water down, cling filmed it, packed it very carefully, drove it down there. There was some soil movement and I had to do a lot of tidying up down there, but it was no problem. Filled it all back up again, stocked it with some fish, had a mature filter. They did the film shoot over a few days and then I came home with it. And after I came home with it, it's really kind of taken a bit of a hit. Some of the plants are melting. The Eleocharis winterdavensis, there's some very dead plants here, which I'll be removing soon. There's quite a bit of hair algae, string algae, BBA, some dying Cyperus helferi as well, some dying Eleocharis. So it kind of looks okay probably from this distance, but I'll show you some close-up so you can get an idea of what we're dealing with. So this video is going to show you the process of how I go about dealing with these issues. I hope you enjoy it. So the first thing I like to do is clean the glass so we can see properly what we're working with. No one likes to look through algae-covered glass. Now I'm going to remove all of this dead Eleocharis. There's also some Juncus repens that isn't doing too well. It's really odd because there's some really healthy plants. It's not all dying off. There's lots of new growth, which is quite promising to see. But I think it was just a shock of the transportation that's caused the plants to melt back a bit. So here you can see some of that nasty hair algae. So I actually tried to remove as much with my fingers as I can. That way I know it's actually being removed from the aquarium. And I also follow that up with right at the end I do a huge water change to dilute any of those algae spores that will now be floating around the tank, you see. You can remove quite a lot of moss and it will just grow back. You can see one of the Cyperus leaves here. There's a clean, healthy one, so we know it's not completely dead. And there's an old one. There's probably an old immersed leaf that didn't transition. So I actually find this process actually really therapeutic. Getting rid of the old dying stuff to make new for fresh new growth. It's quite a symbolic activity. We are the caretakers here. We're collaborating with nature. We're not trying to control it. We're just helping it, collaborating with it in order to hopefully achieve something more beautiful than it was before. And healthy. You know, health and beauty are arguably intrinsically linked. Rather than just treating the algae, it's important to identify the cause. Otherwise it will just, if you don't modify what that cause was, then it could potentially just keep coming back again. So I think in this case it was just the stress of moving the tank. Maybe there was some filter media die off as well with the length of time of travelling, which would potentially cause the ammonia spike, which is a known algae trigger. Not maybe enough to harm the fish, but enough to trigger the algae. The substrate moving, the soil moving would have definitely caused an imbalance somehow. And then to be fair, I probably wasn't doing enough water changes post move, so that would have been another cause, so lots of potential contributing factors to the melting plant or the dying plants and the algae. So all I can do is control the controllable, which is addressing what I see before me now and then keeping up with my regular maintenance practices that I know that work over the long term. So in this case, I'll probably be doing a couple of water changes a week now on here, just to keep things clean and fresh, which in a high-tech system are synonymous with helping to prevent and treat algae. If you do struggle with algae at home in your own tanks, don't see it as a bad thing. Just see it as something that you can learn from, embrace the algae, see it as an opportunity to sort of build resilience. The more times you do overcome algae, the more you learn, the more confident you get, the more you can apply that learning to other scapes, so then the less risk of algae you'll get in the future. But it happens to us all, Unhealthy plants, algae issues. It's very, very likely to happen to everyone that keeps an aquarium, especially a planted aquarium where you're dealing with usually higher lighting levels, higher nutrient levels, and unless you've got optimum plant growth, algae is more likely. Algae and plants are always in competition with each other. If you have more healthy plants, their plants are going to use those important resources, the light and the nutrients. They're going to use those more than the algae can. Whereas if you don't have enough plants to use those resources, algae will be the result. Once you understood that concept, you can then look at the factors that go towards healthy plant growth. It's quite easy to address the quantity of plants just by ensuring you buy enough plants to start with your new scape, or you have enough plants in your tank, in order to be what we call a heavily planted tank. So you're looking at least 50% of the substrate covered with healthy plants. And to look after the plants, then it's just quite a simple case of enough light, not too much, because that will trigger algae, and not too little, because that won't let the plants grow. So paradoxically, having too little light can be a contributing factor to algae. It's really interesting because one of the most common tips to dealing with algae, once you've got it, is to cut back on the lighting. But if you do that too much, it can be detrimental. So in a high-tech system with appropriate plants, you could arguably increase the lighting if your light isn't strong enough to start with, and that could help prevent algae. When it comes to nutrients, I'm also talking about carbon dioxide. Carbon is the most important nutrient. We need to make sure there's enough nutrients to feed the plants to keep up with the amount that they want to grow, which is proportional to the lighting. So the more light you have, the more nutrients you need. Otherwise, loads of light, the plant wants to grow super quick. But if it doesn't have enough fuel, i.e. nutrients, it can't grow. But algae can. Okay, so we're nearly there now in terms of removing the worst leaves. There's a few cypress leaves still today. So this is interesting here. Look, you can see where my hand is. This is the Juncus repens that I've actually used as an epiphyte. So just wedged it in the wood there. Okay, I think next job will be removing BBA from the rocks and the woods. Mostly on the woods, but I'll remove some of the green algae from the rocks as well, using my special ADO brush. Let's just trim this as well. I'll just show you what I mean by trimming the moss with your fingers. So just, rather than cutting it, because when you cut it, that moss just floats away and then can potentially, go somewhere in the tank where you don't want it. Sometimes it's cool. It's quite nice to have the moss sort of randomly attach itself. Kind of looks quite natural. I just wonder if this piece would look nice in the front. Yeah, it's quite nice there, I think. Unfortunately, some of the wood has become detached, so I glued it all together originally with some, I think it was like a special silicone, ABL hardware, I think. But unfortunately, probably in transit. It's all part of that journey to London and back. No, hopefully it'll be worth it. Always good to stir the substrate up a bit as well. Keep it fresh. So many Ramswan snails in here now, I might siphon some out. It's good to leave a little bit of algae on the rocks. It looks quite natural. But the action of, kind of scrubbing quite hard with a steel brush is it takes a really tiny layer of the rock off, but it exposes the nooks and crannies, the crevices, the cracks in the stone, and you get these really nice contrasting lines. The strata really brings out the strata, which are those natural lines that can look so attractive. And you can use those natural lines, deliberately, position them deliberately to enhance the overall scape. So I'm just siphoning the water into the garden right now. Not that we need any more water, we just had a huge torrential rain lately. Really easy way to clean this stone, just turn it over. You can see the strata there, so I'll use that deliberately. Maybe use it that way. Lean it up against the wood to follow the grain of the wood, and also complement this stone here. Would be good to have a plant here, wouldn't it? Maybe some anubias. So what I'll do now is I'll propagate some anubias from the Highline 400 and I'll wedge it in here. So it's a good thing to do this whilst the tank is being emptied, because all of that algae and waste-filled water will now be getting siphoned away. Okay, let's then grab some anubias. I will do a full update on this Oase Highline 400 soon, because it is looking magnificent. It does need a maintenance session. Maybe I'll do a lovely maintenance video on this as well. Let me know what you think in the comments. So I'm just looking for the most sort of overgrown bit of anubias. There's some there that's probably easy to come out. There we go. This is a great thing about having multiple tanks running at the same time with a similar palette of plants. You can interchange them. There's no sides. There we go, so that's okay for now.